A community meeting is being held on Saturday, January 4th from 10 a.m. to noon at the Ken Hill Center to discuss the future of the former Bowie Racecourse property. Members of the Bowie City Council and state lawmakers will be in attendance. The Stronach Group owns the former Bowie Racecourse property, Pimlico Racecourse, and Laurel Park. The owners won't need the Bowie property if proposed changes to Pimlico and Laurel can be made, and the 161 acres may transfer ownership as part of a broader deal. If the property is divested, ownership may be transferred to the City of Bowie, Bowie State University, Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, or a combination of entities. City of Bowie officials plan to sign a letter next week committing to use the property for open space and recreation only. Maryland National Capital Park and Planning maintains county parks in Prince George's County, and officials there would likely support open space and recreation uses as well. According to some reports, Bowie State University is likely interested in the property to build dorms. So what exactly is the former Bowie Racecourse property? Most people are familiar with seeing the track along Racetrack Road, but an aerial view is helpful to see the size of the property and the relationship of that property to nearby parks and neighborhoods. The main portion of the property can clearly be identified by the oval track. The total land that may be divested totals about 161 acres, and it includes property on both sides of Racetrack Road. Ownership of more than 170 acres of the former Racetrack property has already transferred to Maryland National Capital Park and Planning for open space and recreation, most of it changing hands in the 1990s. That includes about 120 acres where the Saddlebrook East Park is located, 11.5 acres that make up a portion of Saddlebrook West Park, a 1-acre sliver of land along the WB&A Trail, and a nearly 40-acre parcel that includes the new Horse Pen Park along the WB&A Trail. Maryland National Capital Park and Planning also owns several nearby parcels of land that were not part of the former Racetrack property. To the south is Yorktown Park, on land that Levitt & Sons once purchased from the Jesuits. To the north is the WB&A Trail and more than 75 acres of land along the trail. Several residential areas are in close proximity to the former Racetrack property, including Saddlebrook. Saddlebrook was built on a portion of the former Racetrack facility, and several barns and an access road to the track were once located where Saddlebrook is located today. Saddlebrook West also abuts the property, and there are a couple of residential properties to the north that abut the Racetrack property. And of course, Anne Arundel County lies on the other side of the Patuxent River from the Racetrack property. The former Racetrack property has a few characteristics which are important to keep in mind. Number one, portions of the property that abut the Patuxent River will have limited use because some of the areas close to the river tend to flood. Number two, Racetrack Road is the only way to access the property. Number three, the property is not contiguous with the Bowie State University property, so any use by the school would have to be supported by shuttle service or individual car trips. Number four, Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission has contiguous property in its portfolio stretching from Bowie's Idlewild neighborhood to the south to the Fran Euler Park to the north, with one gap in the middle at the Racetrack property. Filling that gap by transitioning at least a portion of the property to the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission could support a future trail that connects to the existing WB&A Trail. So how will the future of the property be decided? The Baltimore Sun published a very detailed article about a deal that was reached between the Stronach Group and Baltimore officials in October. Previous proposals included the closing of the Pimlico Racecourse, and that was unacceptable to officials in Baltimore. The following details are included in the proposed deal. The Pimlico property would be donated to Baltimore. The existing clubhouse at Pimlico would be replaced. The Pimlico track would be rotated 30 degrees to allow better use of the overall property. The Preakness would remain at Pimlico. Total improvements to the Pimlico Racecourse would cost almost $200 million. The Stronach Group's training and stable operations would be consolidated at Laurel Park. $175 million worth of improvements would be made at Laurel Park. The Maryland Stadium Authority would issue $350 million in 30-year bonds to pay for the improvements at Pimlico and Laurel. Stronach would divest itself of the Bowie Training Center facility property. So the Bowie Racetrack property is not going to be divested in a vacuum. A deal has to come together in order for the Stronach Group to feel comfortable that they no longer need the property. And there are impediments for a deal being reached. Legislation must be approved by the Maryland General Assembly. The 2020 session starts later this month and runs through the beginning of April. The funding mechanism will have to be finalized and approved. Additional casino revenues are being requested for this project. Any funding for the project will be competing with funding for roads and schools. The conditions of roads and schools in Bowie is a major concern for Bowie residents. It's important to remember that just last year, the Stronach Group was proposing a $40 million investment to create a state-of-the-art training facility on the Bowie property. Now, Stronach is talking about divesting itself of the property. Although the current deal looks promising, it's hard to tell what will happen during the General Assembly. Plans can and do change. One last question that needs to be answered is how the plans for the property will acknowledge the history of the property. The track first opened for horse racing in October 1914. It was originally called Prince George's Park, and the name was later changed to the Bowie Race Course. Horse racing was very popular at the time, and several tracks in Maryland opened within a 5-year span, including Laurel, Marlborough, Havre de Grace, and Bowie. Train service was available to most of the tracks, and Bowie racing fans could take the WB&A train to get to the races. The Pennsylvania Railroad would later offer service with special trains to the Bowie track from Baltimore, Washington, and as far away as Philadelphia. By the late 1920s, Bowie was attracting high-quality horses, high-quality jockeys, and on some days nearly 20,000 fans came out to Bowie to see the races. Attendance would reach an all-time high in 1956 when nearly 26,000 people came to the track in a single day. Bowie became known for winter racing in the 1950s, with races held in January and February. Bowie had a reputation for staying open during winter weather. When it snows, Bowie goes, people used to say. Major news services including the Associated Press and United Press International covered the Bowie track. Newspapers throughout the country and Canada carried race results and other news from Bowie. When the facilities weren't being used for horse racing, other community events were hosted at the track. City of Bowie fireworks were held each summer, and an annual Oktoberfest celebration was held each fall. The track also hosted the Prince George's County Fair annually during the late 1970s to early 1980s. The last horse race took place at the Bowie Race Course in July 1985. Horse racing was not as popular in Maryland as it once was. By the time Bowie closed, tracks in Havre de Grace, Cumberland, Bel Air, Hagerstown, and Marlborough had all been shuttered. Only Pimlico and Laurel remained open, although horse racing still occurred annually at the Maryland State Fair in Timonium. The Bowie track remained open as a training center for 30 years, closing in 2015.
Pay attention, Larry. 2012, look. Morning, Cal.
He's here somewhere looking very nondescript, I'm sure. There he is in the back in the blue. Thank you, Mike. For those of you who aren't familiar with Bowie Living is a blog that Mike Rock runs, predominantly operates on Facebook. They do some YouTube videos, as you can see. Mike doesn't get compensated for it. He's just a Bowieite who loves the history, knows Bowie well, probably knows more about the city than all of us sitting up here, and is really great. So if you're not following him on Bowie Living, he's wonderful. And he also sometimes criticizes me, so I'm not just saying this because he's a friend. He's a very good guy. So very briefly, as you can see from this video, this is a big moving deal involving a lot of different groups. Some of you, I think, have a handout from Delegate Geraldine, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a summary position of what the Stronach group is looking to do. That's kind of their position on this issue. And if you can tell from that, Bowie gets one little mention on one of the side bullets. I've read it 3 times, and in plain language, I don't understand what they're saying about Bowie. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we fit into this much bigger deal right now, which is why it's going to be so important as this evolves and as different players ask for different things or come up with new ideas. It's going to be so important that we're communicating with our state lawmakers who are going to be the main team representing us on this issue in Annapolis. No pressure. And that's why we wanted you all to be here today to be able to talk to them a little bit. So I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Adams to say a few words now.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me in the back? I'm using my outside voice anyway, so there you go. Hey, again, I said a little earlier, Happy New Year, and we look forward to the year of working with you as a council. I'm excited about the possibilities that are ahead of us. One of the things I want to kind of cut to the chase, because we're here to hear it from you. That's why we're here. So I'll make this very brief, and I think I speak on behalf of the other council members and say why we wanted to do this was to follow through with what we've talked about before, and that's making sure we hear your voice. When we talk about one city, one Bowie, this is a part of what that is. It's an opportunity for you to tell us what you believe is in the best interest of the city, and for us to listen so that we can act upon that. When we ask you here today, I think there's a couple of things that I hope we would accomplish. And the first one we did, and that's getting you here. And that's showing that you have an interest and you're concerned about your city. The second thing is that we need your support. Whatever the deal is, and as the city moves forward, we need you to support us by contacting us, by contacting our delegation and all, and letting them know what your wishes are. And so we need your support. We need you to contact us and let us know that we're moving in the right direction for what you want to do. I think the other thing is that we need to make sure we hear what you want. And I've said that a couple of times, but that's why we're here. Not for us to tell you what you want, but to hear from you what you want. Now, I will say that one of the things that came up, and I'll move on real quick with this, is that I know it was said that Bowie State was looking at doing dorms there. Well, we've actually talked with Bowie State, and they said no, that their only interest is in recreational space as well as open area, green space. So we're kind of on the same page there. But what we want to do is make sure we hear from you. We need your support. As you've seen and you've heard and you will hear more of, there's a lot of moving parts on this. But we need your support to make this happen. I think it's important for the city to make it happen. So I just ask that you support us on this, that you make sure your voices are heard. I think many of you may have seen where we've passed out, and I know Delegate Valentino Smith sent out something saying these are the contact points. Make sure you reach out. Make sure you let all your council members, me as mayor, but also the delegation know that this is what you want. So when we go for the ask, and as they work hard to make sure they can bring this home, that they know that the citizens of Bowie support them in doing it. So having said that, I don't know if anybody wants to say anything else, because I think we really want to get to hearing your voices. So thank you so very much for coming out, and thank you for loving your city.
And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over real quickly to our state lawmakers if they want to say a couple of words, starting with Senator Peters.
Okay. Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Thank you, Councilman Stev, for setting this up. Thank you for City Council for coming out. We had a legislative meeting a few weeks ago, and this was the #1 topic. Someone just fell. Is there a doctor in the house? Okay, I'll move forward. Just a couple of kind of highlights. What the mayor said is very important. We're here to allay your fears. Nothing's going to happen overnight. This has been a long process with this track, and I know you called Dufour and Michael old farts. He called, but we're seasoned. Okay, that's what we are. I've learned that word, and I've been working with the city in different capacities for 22 years, and this project has been in and out, up and down, back and forth, as many of you know. First of all, a while back, Racetrack Road is a 2-lane road. We know that. Okay, so anything that goes there is going to have to be a low traffic generator, low or no. And okay. The issue regarding the road itself, there was a time when there were gullies there. I don't know if you remember, okay? And we got those filled and we got those fixed. And there was a time when that track was unsightly, okay? And we put legislation in and worked with the city, did a memorandum of understanding, and now you can see we got the new fence there on the one side, and we got the other fence on the other side that blocks that issue there, which is still an issue. The property is zoned for the lowest possible density, okay? And the reason is because the developer isn't going to touch it, which was the whole reason we did it. So you can put one home for every 5 acres on that property, and you can't make money. So we're protected. We're very well protected. You can't change that unless we pass a state law. So here we are. This is our 4th proposal, by the way, okay? A couple years ago, they asked for the city to put together a bid. The city, Park and Planning, the state came up with the money. 3 appraisals were done on the property. They rejected the proposal, okay? They came back into my office and our offices here in the delegation, and they said they were going to build a bunch of stables in the middle of the track and show these beautiful pictures, and all that happened, and that never happened, okay? Then last year, we had this piece of legislation which would have moved the Preakness to Laurel and would have moved the training center to Bowie. And they were going to build, you know, they were going to create a campus really where Pimlico was. There wasn't going to be racing there anymore, okay? That was rejected, okay? And that's where the $40 million came from. They were going to put $40 million into the Bowie Racetrack area to build stables. But now that's changed. The new proposal, keep it at Pimlico, Laurel becomes a training center, Bowie's out. And, you know, we'll go ahead and divest or whatever they're saying they're going to do for us. So that's where we are right now. I take a lot of lead from Patuxent Riding, Kimberwick, Saddlebrook, and Colts Neck, which are the, you know, the 4 directly impacted communities, and then of course the rest of the city, because you've dealt with it. In fact, Patuxent Riding and Kimberwick were the ones that actually got Colts Neck downzoned. They were going to put 2 homes for every half acre there, and we said you can't do that because the road can't handle it, and we got that downzoned, so there's less density. So we're going to listen to you. I thank the city for putting this together, and we're going to not pass the law unless we get what we want, for because they need us. They need our votes. They need our support. And even though Bowie isn't the big player that it is, frankly, you know, Pimlico's going to get the money and Laurel's going to get the training centers. We're not going to support it unless we get what we want. So thank you for coming out today. And again, I'd like to thank the city for sponsoring this.
Good morning, thank you. It is always incredible when we get the city together like this. This is the way that we work and the way that we can do our best work, is you coming out. One of the things is we really only have a way to communicate with you. Some of you got different emails. You got them from the city council, or you got them from us at the state, or you read about it in the Bowie Blade. But I know that Councilman Esteve has a sign-up sheet out there, so please make sure you're signed up, because we can do our best work when we can communicate with you, and that really will be by email going forward. Thank you, City, for putting this together. That was a great video. We're here to listen to you, so I don't want to talk too long, but I did used to walk to the racetrack for the fireworks, and my dad did bring me up there every morning to get hot chocolate at that 7-Eleven and watch him work in the backstretch. So I'm very sensitive to what an important piece of property this is. Senator Peters outlined very well the history that we've had through and our work with the city to maintain that piece of land and understand not only its historic importance, but the importance of it not being developed. The piece of paper, I brought 100 copies, and I applaud you for that not being enough. I'm sorry. That is the Stronach Group's position as of yesterday when I spoke to them in terms of what they believe the proposed legislation would entail. And as was pointed out to you, Bowie is not mentioned in the current proposal. And so our job in Annapolis, we have a very strong team, and our strength is in working together as a delegation, is to listen today and to go back to Annapolis and to make sure this Racing and Community Development Act has in it what we need, because this is the leverage. Once this piece of legislation moves telling us to wait, we're going to lose our leverage. And then I will say that in talking to the group, the one thing we need to be on our toes with the city and all of us is they are not contemplating donating or giving away all of the parcels. They are only talking about being committed to a portion of the parcels for dedicated public use, which is a strong sign that they are considering, or part of this negotiation are the parcels that do at least have some development capacity as being held back. And that's something we need to keep a very, very strong eye on. In addition, they have told us that it will be several years before the property or whatever use we're able to negotiate for it or turn it over because they're going to maybe bring the horses back there and use it as a training facility for a couple years till they complete the renovations at Pimlico and for Laurel. So this is a couple years out in their mind before they're no longer going to relinquish their need for the training facility. But this is the year that the legislation will occur, and this is where we want to make it clear to the legislative body what will happen with that parcel in this legislative deal for Pimlico and Laurel. So thank you, City Council, for putting this together. We work strongly as a team. 2 other places, please communicate. Please communicate strongly to the county executive's office so that the county knows what our position is, and to the governor's office. The governor's office will play an important role in this too, and you need to make sure the governor hears Bowie loud and clear. So I look forward to hearing from you and communicating with you on this important issue. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. And just real quickly, I just want to allay a couple of fears. I've had a lot of correspondence and discussions, not just with our council members, but with also with Bowie State University. And a lot of the communication seems to make it look like it's Bowie State University or the city of Bowie, and I assure you it is not. There is no conflict. Once the land goes to the city has a lot of flexibility and can easily enter into an MOU to support Bowie State University as you all and we all believe that serves the best purpose. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. I thank you for the several dozen emails telling me you guys were coming and your positions. We really appreciate that, and you don't know how important it is that we really understand your needs. We're going to stay tight and united when we go next week back to Annapolis and continue fighting for you. And Happy New Year to everybody.
Good morning, everyone. And first up, I want to thank the city as well for presenting this organization this morning, this discussion this morning. As it has been indicated earlier, there is legislation that must be passed prior to anything taking place with that Bowie racetrack. That is mostly in our control. We are going to be, as indicated earlier, we are going to be in one accord in terms of how this the racetrack takes place in the city of Bowie. We have a significant pull within the delegation in the General Assembly in terms of what happens there, because the delegation, as is mentioned earlier, we did have a meeting already about Bowie racetrack. The delegation recognizes that the racetrack is in our jurisdiction. They are deferring to us in terms of what we want to see in that legislation for the Bowie racetrack, because it is in our delegation's district. So we do have some control as much as we can. Keep in mind now, control in a legislative political issue is an odd word to use, if you know what I mean. But we are together. And the delegation are looking to us for guidance in terms of what we want in this legislation. Thank you again so much for coming out, and thank you for the city for putting this on.
I just want to say a big thank you again to my city colleagues and also our state lawmakers for joining us. They're starting their legislative session in 4 days, and that's a 3-month marathon. I know they got a lot on their plate, so I really appreciate them taking the time to be here today. We're going to go ahead and turn it over to you all now. We have a mic here. Where's Una Cooper? Do we have another mic floating around? Okay, so what we're going to do, one of 2 things. If folks want to basically kind of come up to the mic one at a time, try and keep comments down to about 1 minute, just because we're trying to give as many folks an opportunity to talk. And if someone says something that you agree with 100%, you're allowed to get up and say, I agree with everything that person said 100%. We're taking notes. This meeting is also going to being recorded and will also be broadcast on the Bowie Government Channel, Channel 10 for Verizon, 71 or 99 for Comcast. It will also be up on the website, and it will be on YouTube. And on YouTube, you can have the closed captions as well. So this will be a record of this. If you have any thoughts not related to the racetrack, related to other city things, I would just ask to not bring that up today, since we're just talking about the racetrack. You all got a half-page handout. If not, we have a couple of extras. It includes 4 listening sessions the City Council is hosting coming up, 2 in January and 2 in February, all in the evening at 7 p.m. We're not going to make you come out another Saturday. These will be an opportunity for you to talk about any and all Bowie-related things. So please defer to that if you don't have racetrack comments today. You also have the email addresses of all your city elected leaders, all your four state delegates, and I threw in the county council chair and the 2 at-large county council members. So if you don't get a chance to talk today, you can send us all emails. We will be getting those, and we can go from there. So with that, we'll go ahead and start taking comments from you all. If anyone wants to start lining up at that mic. If you can't stand up to the mic, you can simply raise a hand and Una Cooper will bring a microphone around to you. And we'll go from there. And again, please keep comments to about 1 minute.
Hi. Thanks so much for the opportunity to provide comment. I'm Maureen Peterson, the president of the Patuxent Riding HOA. I am thrilled to know that the Bowie State is also on the page of a green space. That brings a lot of relief to myself and several of our neighbors. We were not thrilled, not 100% vote yet at our neighborhood, but we're not totally thrilled with dorms coming in between, having our neighborhood between the dorms and the actual campus. I am very happy to hear Senator Peters and Delegate Geraldine and Valentino Smith talk about low traffic impact or no traffic impact. If you live in Kimberwick or Racetrack or Patuxent Riding, we have one way in and one way out. And the only way in or out is through Racetrack Road. Racetrack Road is a free-for-all right now. We have illegal passing. We have very impatient tailgating. God forbid you go the speed limit on Racetrack Road. We have passing on the right, passing on the left. It really is a free-for-all. It is very difficult to get out of Kimberwick and Patuxent Riding during, what's the word I'm looking for? Thank you, people. Racetrack, you're here for me, I like that. During rush hour already. So the low impact or no impact from a traffic perspective is extremely important to us. And of course, we would welcome green space. Thank you for your support.
Morning, Senator Peters, Geraldine, Michael. Thanks for all your leadership and all the other council members. I prepared some statements, and I originally prepared the statements based off of the understanding that there were going to be dorms possibly built. So I've kind of toned that down a little bit. I live in Saddlebrook West, lived in Bowie for 14 years now. I live right next to the track, so any impacts I would be feeling. The biggest concern I have is that the high density housing of any sort. Same thing that everybody else has already voiced. But to get an idea of community concerns, I went on the Nextdoor app to take a look, and there were over 250 comments that were on there. I was happy to see most people were saying we want a park, we want open space of some sort of park. I agree, on our side of the community, we do not have enough open space as far as parkland space. Yeah, we have the Saddlebrook East right there that's ball fields, but that's pretty much it. Allen's Pond, you go over there, you're lucky if you can get a parking spot in there, right? It's overcrowded. We need to take some of the capacity off of Allen's Park or Allen's Pond Park, and we need another park over in our area, and that would help with the traffic congestion and all that. Also, the existing trail, the bike trail, they built an extension that goes behind Bowie State University. That was a great idea, and they're going to build a bridge that will go across, for those of you who don't know, from behind Bowie State University to connect Bowie's trail with Crofton's trail. So we'll have an incredible trail that would continue all the way up to close to BWI Parkway. When that's built, and if we do build a park right there where the racetrack is at, hopefully that will have trails around it, and the trails could connect to each other. There's the horse pen, I think they call it playground. They just built and opened. It's right off the trailhead right there by off a racetrack. They did a fantastic job with that playground, and it's getting a lot of traffic already. And so the playground, the bike trail, this park would be a huge success if we could make that happen. I think it would be a win-win for everybody. Bowie State University would get access to a great facility and bike trails that are nearby. It would decrease traffic on the road, and I can tell you what, Saddlebrook East and West would be extremely happy, and the rest of the residents who are complaining about the traffic. Not to mention, we already know there are 5 developments right now in proposal stages, which I'm completely against all of them. And thank you, Tim Brady, for your leadership in saying that you're not for overdevelopment, and I voted for you, so we're looking forward to that leadership. With those 5 proposals at stake, we absolutely have to have something that counterbalances that. So thank you.
Good morning. I'm Linda Cooper, and one of the original purchasers of a Bowie home in 1962. So been here a long time, raised my kids here. They're grown, they're gone, they're doing great things in the world. But I have thoughts on Bowie. I was on the first Bike Trails Committee in Bowie and have been engaged with the community in many ways since then. But I have to write things down. I don't read off a cell phone, sorry about that. I speak today for the racetrack and for history. We have in our midst a magnificent piece of Maryland history and of American history in the form of the Bowie Racetrack. It is not just excess land, but truly the cradle of American horse racing. We in Bowie are the guardians of Bel Air Mansion, home of early governors. We are the guardians of the Bel Air stables, producers of Triple Crown winners. And we have been the site of the Bowie Racetrack as both an active betting track and its more recent years as a training track for many blue ribbon winners. Which brings me to the importance of keeping this exceptionally outstanding place in use, possibly as a training track. Some years ago, I was a coordinator for the GED program at Bowie High School, night school for 8 years. And on occasion, jockeys would come in to register. What do you do when you're a jockey, right? You got free time, go get more education. In conversation, they spoke of the excellence of the track surface at Bowie, which in turn led to a finer product coming out of training here. One man stated very firmly that it was perhaps the finest track surface in the East, which was very beneficial for the horses themselves. He said they did not suffer leg stress injuries, which did occur with some frequency at another nearby track where shin splints were a constant problem for the horses. It seems to me a wise person investing in horses would keep the use of the track surface that optimizes the condition of the horses as the track surface to utilize, not as one to shut down. Indeed, I kept a portfolio of racing results on area tracks, and it was very interesting to note that horses coming in the money showed a high percentage had Bowie as their training track. The data spoke for itself in supporting the experience of the jockeys that this track surface was an asset as a training site. Further, a friend who owned 3 racehorses and stabled them there said the jockey is actually the best person to talk to about the condition of a horse, for they are the only one who day in and day out is in such symbiotic relationship and riding them out that they know by feel every twitch and pull of muscle, sinew, and tendon, every flinch of reaction to what is underfoot. And the jockey is the person with whom to talk if you really want to know about the horse, its condition, and the tracks they run on. Now, I don't know how freely a jockey feels, to be frank, to a track owner. Maybe yes, maybe no. The same may be true of a jockey to a horse owner, but what I have heard tends to make me aware the jockey is a key player in anything and maybe everything to do with horse racing. And I tend to believe that the best thing to do with Bowie Racetrack is to keep it operational as a training track, expand it as a regional resource for horseback riding for handicapped persons, develop perhaps a show ring for beginning riders, for performance horses in jumping. There are a number of privately owned riding stables in the area, some of whom may welcome an opportunity to form a consortium of services for the riding public. Perhaps riding trails could be developed that follow the old railroad line that went from Laurel to Bowie through now maturing woodlands and in conjunction with Park and Planning Commission plans for that area. You, in fact, could become a key figure in developing an outstanding outdoor recreation area which revolves around a base of horses. Activities would range from those suitable youth, for the handicapped, for therapeutic rehabilitation of individuals through horsemanship, to restoration of a classic training track for flat racing. It would stand as an ultimate tribute to the place of horses across the long stretch of history in this place. renewed for a time and a multiplicity of new services to encompass the challenge of both a traditional sport and embrace the place of the horse as a valued companion for many needs in health, recreation, and a community resource of excellence. The best is yet to be for a new era in the cradle of American horse racing. 500 stabled horses as it has long served, and branching out from your familiar world of flat racing to the world of community service. Barns where a viewing stand once stood, an indoor riding ring, recreation, true recreation to contribute to a community that would value a horse center like none other in the region. When you think you are thinking wide, think wider still, for wider opportunities await for something new, something better, something bold, and perhaps even daring for this racetrack to be something very special. We have no more need for housing development. There is much need for human service that is of value, that defies definition in making the horse what stands out for this region, this city, these people. Thank you.
Good morning, all. My name is Ron Scotes, and I am the senior member of the Bowie Advisory Planning Board for 25 years. However, I am not in that capacity right now. I come before you all as a 34-year resident of the B section of Bowie. I want to applaud, first of all, our elected officials for what they have done to take a dilapidated, dangerous eyesore and making it look half decent now. It was really getting really bad. And as somebody who actually was rumored to put $2 wagers back in the Bowie in its heyday, I think that keeping the tradition and history alive is very critical. However, I'm just here today to just kind of make what I would call my request for consideration for the legislation that's being drafted. Now, I understand that from the mathematics that currently you have one house per 5 acres, which is roughly 80 units. And the one thing that is also obvious is that you're going to have these guys wanting to develop. I think the way we can kill two birds with one stone is simply, yes, okay, if we are going to rewrite the legislation, we rewrite the legislation with a caveat that any development on that property be dedicated to adult or senior living community. One of the reasons I like that, I look around the room and I see that none of us are getting younger. And secondly, I'm kind of tired of being over in Arundel County, specifically Crofton, watching these facilities go up. And here in Bowie, for us that want to stay in place, are forced to move out of our houses. The biggest thing that I see as a valid argument for this project would be the low trip generation. I also travel on Racetrack Road quite frequently, and we alluded to, sometimes you really have to take your life from the road against driving. The other thing that is very important is talk about the schools, adequacy of our school system now. By an adult community, you're not putting the burden of additional students on the already taxed system. You also will have advantages of some of the other services that the city provides. Thus, you'll have a tax base, and you will not have to be paying as many taxes for our services. I just want to thank everybody, and being down there in Annapolis during the time, I applaud our delegation. They do a fantastic job. And they always want to bring back the best for us. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Watson. I'm a resident of Bowie. I live in the Westview neighborhood off of Church Road. And I'm also president of the Patuxent Bird Club and a member of the board of directors of the Maryland Ornithological Society. Our organizations are aligned with the positions that have already been stated by some of the community members with regard to use of this property, namely limited development, low traffic impact, and preservation of green space, as well as preservation of the historic nature of this iconic property within the Bowie community. I have to say that I didn't grow up in this area. I grew up in Delaware, but I had family here, and my earliest memories of Bowie are going to the races with my dad. So I have a soft spot in my heart for the Bowie Racetrack. With regard to the use of the property, one aspect I want to point out that hasn't been mentioned so far is the preservation of that strip of land along the Patuxent River, the gap that currently exists between the MNC PPC properties. There is incredibly important habitat there for birds and other wildlife, and for the health of the Patuxent River and the water quality, the water that we all drink, it's really important to preserve the native habitat there. So that would be our position. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ken Cohen. I'm the president of Prince George's County Ornithological Audubon Society, and I'm also a director of the Patuxent Bird Club and a director of the Maryland Audubon Society. First of all, I want to thank councilmen, mayor, and our state delegation for listening to us. The Audubon Society strongly supports Marcia's position with respect to preserving the strip of property that connects the two parks as being extremely important habitat for our birds. I could sit here and name several different species of birds, but I won't bore you with that we have seen just at the horse pens area. The Patuxent Bird Club and the Prince George's County Audubon Society run a monthly walk that includes the Fran Euler area. I skipped the walk today to be here, and our sightings from there have been tremendous throughout the years. We conducted a census that included that property on January 1st. It turned up things like a catbird, wood duck, and other avian species that are would not exist and would not be there without the property being preserved. And preserving that property is a key piece of environment for our birds is extremely important. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Linda Bowie. Linda Bailey, I'm sorry. I am a homeowner here in Bowie for the last 16 years. I plan to be a homeowner here until my days are done. And I also happen to be a recreation specialist. I want to say that it's most likely that the best caretaker for this property, because this property, once it is acquired, even if it's acquired for no cost, will require funds in order to maintain it and make improvements so it can be used as a recreational facility, would likely be the Maryland National Capital Parks and Planning Commission. We pay taxes to the commission. We don't get back what we pay in taxes to the commission. It's about time they did something for Bowie besides just put up a new playground. As long as there's no retail or housing development, we have the same goal. As far as turning it into a senior living community, I work in the senior service industry. I work for the Old Soldiers Home. We cannot fill our rooms down there. There are senior communities popping up everywhere. Senior communities are pitted against other senior communities to try to get people to move in. The demographics will change, and in 20 years, you're gonna have half-empty senior communities. So while people want to live where they are and live in a senior community, putting one up does not guarantee that that will be there for 50 years or that the community will not ask for younger people to be able to move in. I understand your needs, but the best thing you can do if you are a senior in Bowie is to get over to the senior center, use their health programs, use their exercise programs, stay socialized, stay in your home. Most of us have everything we need on one floor. So let's keep an open space. If we have to join together with the commission or support the commission in order to keep this going, that's great. And just keep letting us know, everyone, what we can do to keep this open space. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Valerie Ormond, and I'm a Bowie resident. And okay, my parents bought the house in 1964, whoever it was. But I grew up with the racetrack, and had a prepared statement. In the interest of time, I'll send it to all of you. But I am very much aligned with everyone who wants to keep it recreational use. My caveat is I want to have it have something to do with horses. So equestrian trails, something like that. Something to keep the racetrack legacy. And I also speak on behalf of the Maryland Horse Council, representing 30,000 Maryland horse people on that position. So thank you for your time.
My name is Tawana Rainey, and my house sits literally in that curve on Racetrack Road. A couple of concerns I have as someone who's lived there for several years, and I'm speaking on behalf of a couple of my neighbors on the same street. Number one, green space or recreational space. The traffic on that road is insane. I can't tell you the number of times I call 911 because someone has flipped their car, gone through the fence, done any number of things. And even though there's an iron fence there, they manage to still get through it. So whatever happens over there, be a green space, we have to consider how you access that green space as well. Because right now, going into, Saddlebrook West, the park itself is dangerous because people come through there too quickly. The one question I have, I know they're proposing the racetrack itself, which would be ideal as a green space, but the stables themselves, we've heard a lot of people propose senior housing, some other things. Is there not an opportunity to accommodate both, green space on the track, senior housing on the stables, or something? And I'm not for development, so ultimately I would prefer all of it stay green space. But if it's a question of meeting the needs of the owners as well as satisfying the residents, is there an opportunity for us to consider doing two things that meet both requests? So that's where we stand. We want green space. I don't want any more accidents. So even if we don't do anything, we still need to address traffic on Racetrack Road without question.
Hi, I'm Patricia Seaton. I'm a 25-year resident of the Meadowbrook area, and I also am the planetarium specialist for Prince George's County Public Schools. So I'm just prefacing that I'm a little bit of a dreamer. So I don't speak statistics. I don't speak that very well, but I speak to looking up and looking around me. About 2 or 3 mornings a week, I walk the Spur. That's right there. It's something I discovered about a year ago, and we're here in the middle of a busy community, but in the springtime, you're hearing the spring peepers and all the frogs. It's amazing. I saw an eagle flying over the area, which was breathtaking because it wasn't in a zoo. It was in real life. Now you're hearing all of the magnificent birds walking along that. I've watched the beaver catch a fish in the stream there. It's an amazing space that needs to be preserved. And in the mornings when I'm driving past the racetrack to get to the Spur, sometimes the racetrack is in a mist, and it's almost like you can see the history coming back alive. I think Park and Planning does a wonderful job with things. They have some themes in their parks. I can envision them taking that space and making it a horse theme and keeping that history and keeping that dream and keeping those wonderful little things that most people don't take the time to hear and listen and see, keeping that alive. So thank you for helping make that legislation possible.
Hello, everybody. I am Sue Lavera. I've lived in Bowie for a little over 20 years. I currently chair the green team for the city. So I have a very specific interest, and everything that you all are talking about, of course, makes sense. But there's a word that hasn't been used, and that's sustainability. We cannot do one and done. We cannot look at, oh, we need this now. No, we must look ahead. And for every single plan that comes before all of you, who will vote for us is to have a checklist that says, will it sustain? How does it impact the environment? Whether it's the river, the access for all of our little creatures that live under those leaves in the winter that we rake away. We have to learn more about that. So my encouragement is that as you consider whatever goes on, and perhaps in the 4 listening sessions, a bit of that can be having a brainstorm where we can actually give more specific ideas and break them down for their realistic values. So we're not just giving you good ideas, we're actually working with the bottom lines to those. So all of us must remember the word sustainability. Think about your own home. Are you doing the quick fix or are you looking ahead? And that's what we must do. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Truitt, and I live in the, excuse me, the Y section. I don't want development, but if it comes down to development, I would like to ask the City Council to either ban the construction trucks from using Racetrack Road from the Racetrack to 450. The traffic is terrible already, and the noise and the dirt and the litter that would cause would just be outrageous. And we already have enough trouble with traffic on that street. So if you could either ban or limit the use of construction vehicles from the Racetrack to 450, that would be great. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Craig Lattimore. I live in Saddlebrook West. I've been in that community for 15 years. For 13 of those 15 years, I just want to emphasize that it's really important. Whoever gets this property, they have to be good stewards. The stables are my next door neighbor, stable number 9 to be exact. And during that time, I had a serious issue with storm drainage. And between the home builder, the developer, the county, the city, the state, it didn't get resolved for 13 years, and it wasn't until Senator Peters and Delegate Valentino Smith got involved. And I can't emphasize to you enough how important it is to have someone take care of that property. There's a lot of drainage that comes off of that property. It can have a lot of impact on the neighbors that are on River Park Road, Running Horse Place, and the other side entrance to Saddlebrook West. We are severely impacted by what's going to happen with that stable area. And it's very important for me to ensure that whatever goes over there, and I advocate open space, recreational space, there's really nothing to do on that end. Bowie State University, I'm 4th generation of HBCU graduates. I had a ball partying in school, I had a good time. Went to best for Bowie State. However, you know, I hear that that's not the intention to have dorms. Any recreational space, it needs to be controlled, like they control the ball fields, access, so people aren't coming in after hours. Everybody would like to enjoy that area, I'm sure, but it has to be a good steward who's going to ensure that it's safe for everyone and that it's developed properly.
Hello, Fiona Moody, lifelong Bowie resident. While I appreciate the costs that are associated with Bowie taking on this property, I think that the best stewards of this property would be Bowie. We're the ones who surround the property. We know the intricate history of it, and I think long term, it's in our best interest to take it on. One of the potential ideas that I think could be interesting as a recreational use for it is the stable properties. The smaller part is to think of using that as potential market garden space. You could cooperate with the local elementary schools and get a farm to table program going with the elementary schools. That's something that they've tried in other counties and has been very successful. And it's something I think that would benefit our children greatly and also our community to give them an opportunity to explore that kind of agricultural life in Bowie. But yeah, I'm definitely a proponent of keeping it in Bowie, keeping it open space. I don't think development is appropriate there given the constraints that we're already under. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Aviva Nebeski and I'm a horse farm owner here in Bowie, and I want to thank Linda Cooper because I agree with you 100%. want to say one thing that I don't think has been mentioned. I agree with Fiona. I think that this property needs to stay under the management of the city of Bowie. Maryland National Park and Planning Commission is not in the business of maintaining good open space. They are in the business of following the regulations and the zoning. They go by the letter of the law, not by the spirit. And if we want to maintain the spirit of the race course, and if we want to maintain the spirit of open space, not tennis courts, not golf courses, not ballparks, but open space, course-related open space, then I think Bowie is what's going to be able to do that for us. So, Bowie, it's in your court.
Good morning. My name is Brandon Bowers. I would first say thank you to the city for coordinating this session. I think, as you have alluded to, it's very important to hear from the individuals who live in this community. I'm a 10-year resident of Bowie. I have a young family, kids who are 10 and 7 years old. I serve also on the board of Saddlebrook. I know a couple of my colleagues who serve on the board are here as well. And what I would say, I don't want to speak for every resident within the Saddlebrook community, but I would say the majority of those who attend our meetings express concern about the future of the racetrack and a desire for it to remain green space. I think that is kind of the resounding voice of the Saddlebrook community as it stands today. My wife is also the president of Yorktown's PTA Association, so we are, again, parents of students who live here in the community. And I think if nothing else, this does provide an opportunity for us to use this space as green space, not only for Yorktown, but for other schools. I really love the idea of preserving the history of the racetrack. My kids on field trips often go to Watkins Park, where they have the nature center and things of that sort. And it's something that they always rave about every year. So having the opportunity maybe to preserve that history and have a showcase of the city of Bowie's racetrack there would be a great learning experience for our students here in the community. The other thing I would say is I am a volunteer with Park and Planning at Enterprise Golf Course as a golf coach. If we do maintain this as open space, whether it's ball fields, football fields, etc., what I would encourage the team to think about is how do we put structured programs in place that ensure that this open space is used? A lot of our students and youth, they do travel to Anne Arundel County for those sports programs. And candidly, it's because I think there is a belief that those programs are run better than those programs that are run here in our counties. So I would really challenge us to think about how do we ensure that those students and youth are staying here in the county by offering high quality sports programs that compete again with those of neighboring counties. Thank you again for the opportunity. Appreciate again you listening to our voice and look forward to seeing this project move forward.
Hello and good morning. My name is Kristen Conlon, and I am a new resident of Bowie, and I am also an information professional. And I've heard a bunch of different avenues for accessing information about both this meeting, the listening tours, emailing your representatives, putting our emails down on a sheet of paper. And I'm curious if the city or if there is some other avenue for an aggregator of all of this information so that those of us who are here at this community meeting today and those of us who couldn't make it could access this information in one space in the future. And now I'm going to say this now, if there is a space and I just haven't found it through my two various internet searches, can we build one so that we have some place, one place to go in the future so that we have access to this information through an easy internet search?
Well, let me first start by saying welcome to Bowie.
Hey, thanks.
You picked a great community to live in, and I want to say you are 1,000% right. Yes. Unfortunately, we do not have one right now, and it'll be an interest. You also have a fan right here, Roxy, who's also all about it as well. So we're going to try to build that for every resident to make information more easy and accessible for you. So thank you for your comments.
Perfect. Quick question, follow-up?
Sure.
Where would it be located so that we could do follow-up and maybe find it when it's published?
I think the City of Bowie website is easier, but Una, do you want to take this?
Okay, I got a green. We'll put it on the website and we'll make it cityofbowie.org/racetrack.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys so much for doing this for us. I'm Abby Snyder, if you don't know who I am. I wasn't going to talk, but after listening to you guys all come up here and speak, I feel like as someone who campaigned for city council and had people talk to me about these issues, I wanted to be able to tell you what I heard. I don't know about you guys, but I remember when I was younger driving past the racetrack as a kid. One thing that I want to make sure you guys know specifically, though, during my campaigning process, I went over to Bowie State and talked to some of the students, and some of you might have seen my comment on Nextdoor about this. One of the students from Jersey lives in an off-campus apartment and literally has to lift to class every day because there's not enough parking on campus. So their issues are very real. And I just want to make sure that you guys truly know that, because they do need help with housing and stuff. I don't find, and many of us don't find, that this is the right place for it. There's so much history here, and there's so many things that need to be preserved. And it's a great opportunity for us to have that, as everyone's been saying, on this side of Bowie. And so I really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to us. And like Fiona said, I actually had more than one person whose door I knocked on who was really, really trying to advocate for putting some green spaces in for growing foods, farm to table style, and bringing the schools in. That is not the first time I've heard it, and I'm sure it won't be the last. So just wanted to share those opinions from residents that I talked to with you guys. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Joan Glenn. I'm a 25-year resident of Bowie, 15 of those years living in Saddlebrook West. And just as everyone has said, we certainly support open space and recreational use of the facility. Would love to see the horse racing history be incorporated into that. Used to just make my heart swell in the mornings to come out and see the horses training. Kind of been sad now every day when I drive out and don't see them. But a couple things that no one has mentioned that I'd like us to keep in mind, even with recreational or open space, is noise and light pollution. Since they built Wall Chapel, we now have a giant glow behind our house in the evenings that didn't exist before. It was completely dark. And so any kind of recreational facility that would have ball field lights, that kind of thing, can still have a lot of impact. And then I actually have a question or clarification. Senator Peters and Delegate Valentino-Smith, you both talked about the zoning on the property. And Delegate Valentino-Smith, you mentioned that part of the property was more attractive for development for zoning. So I just wanted to get clarification. My understanding is the land where the stables are has a greater zoning density than the racetrack portion. And then Senator Peters, you also mentioned that it would take state legislation to change the zoning around the racetrack, and I'd like a little clarification on that. How does that differ from normal county zoning?
Okay, the zoning is done by the county, and I'm sorry, I wanted to say that Todd Turner couldn't make it today, and he actually is the go-to person for Racetrack Road, because that's a county road, and he's done a lot for us. But the county actually does the zoning, but the state has zoning authority. I've only seen it done one time since I've been in office, and that was at the Glendale Hospital, where they rezoned that property at the state level. So you're correct. The zoning is more intense where the stables are. Where the racetrack is, it's one home for every 5 acres. And the reason that we did that when we rezoned it when I was on the council was that's the most you can downzone it without actually taking the property. Okay, it's called ROS, open space. So, you know, the other issue we have is also that property is 100 plus years old, and who knows what has been dumped in that property back in the day. So there's a lot of issues environmentally. But yes, the state can zone property. Traditionally, the county has done it sitting as a district council, and that will all be addressed when we take a look at this legislation.
My name is Elmer Dengler, and I'm a 20-year resident of this wonderful city. I also am retired from the federal government. Within that profession I was in, technically I would be called an agroecologist. Now, what that means is the merging of the applied concepts of agriculture with the practical, realistic concepts of what ecology is. This particular location has a number of very amazing things that are both unique and special in those areas. For one, and again, I'm talking my experience, not opinion. Okay, my experience since the age of 12, I have worked with pollinator issues, particularly the monarch butterfly. I was involved in some of the original migratory study that determined where the monarch butterfly migrates in Mexico. In this particular property, there is the largest that I know of naturally occurring area that has the primary food source of the monarch butterfly. And I would very much like to be involved in anything we do in the restoration and protection of that area. We need to value the environment. This is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day this particular year. We are also in the middle of the 6th extinction of enormous amounts of pollinator species, of everything else within our ecosystem. And it's all going with us not noticing it. This is an area that we could do something different in Bowie. We could make a wonderful discovery area for nature in those natural habitat areas that others have talked about. That area needs to be under the authority of Bowie, because we need to develop these things within our community to show that we are the leaders in some of these things. We already have an excellent, and I'm already part of the Environmental Advisory Committee, and also have, with my own hands and a team, put in 3 wonderful pollinator habitat plantings on city property. We can continue to lead by example, and this particular area should be done with the city's involvement. Thank you for letting me talk.
Hello, my name is Arnesh Bilal. I'm a 20-plus year resident of Bowie, as well as more than 8 years as a resident of Saddlebrook. One theme that I've heard only from one person who's come to speak resonated with me, and that's, what are we doing for the future of Bowie when it pertains to our children? No one's talked about how do we integrate something like all of this green space and recreation, and how do we get our adolescents a part of that and sustain. When we're talking about sustainability, how are we going to sustain it? Look around this crowd. Look around this crowd. Look at the demographics here. How many adolescents do you see? How many do you see? Not that many. We need to make sure that what we're doing moving forward is sustainable for the future of Bowie, for the future of Bowie. And so one parent spoke about keeping it green space, bringing in the schools, but also when we talk about activities, health is a huge problem for our adolescents today and our children. How many of them go outside and just play? I'm sure some of you remember being sent outside, go outside and play, right? They don't. If you had a place like this, similar to Allen Pond, where they can go out and they can play, and where they can, build their health, exercise, all of those kind of things. I think the green space, possibly a recreational center, affords our young people, and I still consider myself young with all my gray hair, the opportunity to go out and get that exercise in a healthy, conscious way. Thank you.
Marcia Watson again. There was a thought that occurred to me as I listened to other speakers, and that is regarding Bowie State University. I would hope that in addition to Bowie State students, using, if we preserve this as green space, using this as recreational opportunity, I would hope that the university could be persuaded to use it as a living laboratory for their environmental science students.
If there's, sorry, don't want to interrupt you. If there's anyone else who wanted to talk or who couldn't get up for one reason or another, feel free to raise your hand and we can get you a mic. We have a little bit more time we can use. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Patty McCoy. I've lived in Bowie since '92. I'm not going to do the math. I'm an adolescent at heart, but I agree there needs to be a next generation that we're thinking about. A couple of thoughts occurred to me. I've never been one that's gone to the racetrack, but I have fond memories of the racetrack myself, and it kind of broke my heart when the grandstands came down. So I agree that the property would be best served through a Bowie ownership. I have no problem if the Parks Commission wants to take a connective strip along the river, as long as they would provide some access for kayaking and other natural trails. But one thought occurred to me as far as the zoning. Living in Bowie, I definitely chafe at our lack of zoning authority in the city. So having it city property would give us more control over that. And I also thought that maybe the history of the racetrack itself may give some leverage for rezoning under some historical property issues. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wanted to speak today? Can we get a mic to Mr. Stemmer and then to the young lady in the back? All right, Mr. Stemmer's up here, but then we'll get a mic to the young lady in the back. Great.
Thank you, Michael. I'm Carl Stamer. I've been a resident of Overbrook Lane for 37 years. When I moved in 37 years ago, that was not my plan, but here I am. You see that little corner of Yorktown Park? That's where my house is. On our side, we call it Overbrook Park, by the way. It's not Yorktown. But I mentioned that, one, because I'm very familiar with Racetrack Road. I'm not really so concerned about when I get on it. My concern is I can't get on it in the morning, the afternoon. So I associate myself with all those comments about the traffic. I love for those people over in Antioch County to have some other way of going through. That's their, I mentioned being on that park because I strongly agree with the people who say Bowie needs to be, the city needs to have control over this area. Because I've seen what the park and planning folks do at that Yorktown Overbrook Park, nothing. Their policy is natural state, meaning it just rots. And I'm also on the Bowie City Recreation Advisory Committee. So we're familiar with the limited cooperation support we get from park and planning for our facilities here in Bowie. So that's just not the way I would recommend we go. And lastly, speaking on behalf of the CRC, we would love to hear from all of you folks. Our job is supposedly to advise these good folks here on the recreational needs in the city of Bowie. And right now, we don't have enough members. So I encourage you, we meet the first Wednesday of every month, 7 o'clock at City Hall. Meetings are open to the public. You'll need an invitation. You come in, sign in. All you folks, if you've got an issue, bring it to us, and we'll give you some more members. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ruby Christian. My husband and I and the family live right in that little squiggly area up in Saddlebrook West, which is right up on that racetrack. For years, because we've been there for 17 years, that's when it was active over there in that area with the training and the stench and the horse flies. You know, I guess those people who live in Saddlebrook West, you forgot those days. Horses, I don't think, need to be in a residential area. Okay, we could not even sit on the deck, had to get an exterminator with all these strips for these big horse flies. It was terrible. So my husband, yes, even took it to EPA, because from our bed, we could see these big manure piles and the stench was unbearable. So whatever they put there, just don't bring those horses back.
I have a related comment. I work at Bowie. I need to get closer, right? I work at Bowie State. I am a bicyclist. I like to ride my bike, and I cannot bike to Bowie State because Racetrack Road is too dangerous. I can get about a quarter of the way down Racetrack Road without worrying about my life being taken. But when you get around that curve, there is no bike path. And then the bike path picks up a little bit further. So there's a gap where there is no way for a bicyclist to go from one place to the other. I don't know if that's something that can be included as part of this package, but allowing bicyclists to use the entire length of a Racetrack Road would be excellent.
Hi, my name is Ken McCoy. I live in the Chapel Ford section. I'm also part of the Multimodal Access and Public Spaces subcommittee of the Green Team, and we helped push through a update to the Trails Master Plan, as you may recall, that happened last September. So part of that plan would like to see a connection through Racetrack Road to the WBNA Trail, to reinforce what the last speaker has said. So if there is any development on here, it can improve Racetrack Road. Obviously, there's a lot of issues with Racetrack Road with traffic. Make it safer, slow down the speed limit on that road, make appropriate improvements for walkability and bikeability, and connect to the open space. It'd be nice not to have to drive to the park. You know, so many places you have to drive to get exercise. Why not be able to walk and bike there? You have all these houses and residences right next door. So that ought to be factored into the plan. In fact, it's part of the master plan for the trails. So I would like to thank the City Council, past City Council, and current members who were veterans for passing that plan. And also keep in mind that we have a complete streets policy as well that should promote safer streets. Thank you.
So just as a heads up, everyone, we have time for maybe 2 more speakers. If you aren't able to share a comment today, you have our email addresses, so you can send those our way. But we'll just do these final 2.
My name is Sabrina Crutchfield. I live in the Kimberwick section. And as we heard earlier, we were successful in defeating a little development issue. And one of the big things we used was the environmental impact. And at the time we were going through that, we learned that the animals that were displaced at the Bowie Town Center were relocated over in that area. So the environmental thing, I think we could use in this situation. And my question is, what with regard to the Patuxent Wildlife Preserve, does that land join up with that in any way? And is there any way to get the government involved in helping preserve the area?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marcus Skelton. I am a 5-year resident of Bowie. Also received my undergraduate and graduate degree from Bowie State University. So I got a lot of interest in this meeting today. I'm glad to be here with everybody who woke up this morning and who, like myself, love the city of Bowie. I'm not retired in Bowie yet, but plan to retire here. So I think that the quality of life of the city and the quality of education from Bowie State University is the most important thing that should come out of this meeting. While people may differ on parts of it, one, I think the room agrees to, is that building another housing development is just not feasible in that area of the city, and we can't support it with the infrastructure. And I think that the community wants environment as well, and I think that's an awesome research opportunity from for Bowie State University that's not talked about. Also during the day, I work for the Environmental Protection Agency. So it's really hard to recruit at a school like Bowie State University because environmental science or environmental engineering isn't researched there. So I think as we look to the state and we look to the city to build a green space, as this space is being built, this is a great opportunity for current students to learn about how to remediate places like this, and then for the future to build a research center there that could help with environmental science and environmental studies. Thank you guys, and have a good day.
Thank you all so much for joining us on a Saturday morning. I thought we would just need 50 chairs. Sally said, let's do 200. And I said, that's optimistic. So thank you for proving me wrong. That's awesome. I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Adams to close us out with a few words.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming out this morning. I think we've had some good dialogue. I think we've gotten some great feedback. We've also gotten some unique ideas that we can toy with as well. I think one of the things you will see and have seen so far from this city council is one of the things we talked about was stopping the overdevelopment. As you can see, with us moving forward, we're wanting to make sure that we get this property, but also that we use it for recreational and for green space, that we're living up to that commitment. But what we need is your support. And so as we asked a little earlier, make sure you contact all of us, as well as the governor and the county exec, to let them know what your wishes are. So again, thank you for coming out today. I won't hold you any longer. And again, have a great day. And one more time, Happy New Year to everyone.
Yes, this is so much bigger than I expected.